Thank you very much, and good morning, everyone. I'd like to call the meeting to order and acknowledge that we're in Treaty 1 territory, the home and traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Ojibwe, Innu, Cree, and Dakota peoples, and in the national homeland of the Red River Métis. Our drinking water comes from Shoal Lake 40 First Nation in Treaty 3 territory. My name is Lynn Nesbitt. I'm chairing today's panel. Joining me on the panel are Kevin Stephenson and Richard Whitbread. Our assessor today is Eric Gauthier, and our administrative personnel is Sally Caulfield. We'll be hearing applications for revision of the assessment roll in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act. The matters for which revision is requested have been described in each application, and we will limit discussion to those matters. The statements that are made at this hearing are sworn testimony, and anyone speaking to the matter must be sworn in. Be advised that comparisons of assessments of properties are not considered evidence of market value by the Board of Revision. The Board of Revision is appointed annually by Council and is independent of it and the City Administration. It makes its decisions on the basis of the evidence provided at this hearing and issues a written order that will be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the board's decisions with respect to an application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if the matter pertains to assessed value or classification, or to the Court of King's Bench if the matter pertains to the application of exemptions from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included with the board's order. With respect to the hearing process, I will confirm the points of appeal with your property to be addressed by the applicant following the swearing in. We will then have the assessor's testimony, followed by questions that the applicant may have, and then the applicant's testimony, followed by questions. Each side will have an opportunity to summarize if they wish. Once all of the evidence about an application has been brought forward, the applicant may leave. The session will close after the application has been heard, and the board will deliberate in private and make its decisions. You'll receive the board's decision by registered mail as soon as possible. As information, all public hearings are live streamed, recorded, and will be part of the public record. We will be hearing item number 1 on our docket today. Ms. Caulfield, please affirm the assessor's and the applicant's testimony.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Please state your full name.
Eric Gauthier.
Do you affirm that the evidence you are about to give at this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
To the best of my knowledge, absolutely.
Thank you. Mr. Sidhu, please state your full name.
Jasdeep Sidhu.
Do you affirm that the evidence you are about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, and good morning, Mr. Gauthier and Mr. Sidhu. We will start with hearing the assessor's testimony. So, Mr. Gauthier, when you're ready, please proceed with your evidence.
So I just want to point out to the top of my evidence there that this is for the 2023 assessed value, which has a reference date of April 1st, 2021 market value. The subject property is roll number 03093002-385, commonly known as 153 Valley Brook Road. It's located in the neighborhood of Bridgewater Trails. I added the builder name here. It's built by Foxridge Homes. It's a 2-story single family home built in 2023. The living area is 3,876 square feet, has a walkout basement. The basement is finished. It has 2 full baths, 4 half baths, 3 extra showers. It does have central air conditioning, 1 fireplace, a multiple attached garage, no detached garages, no pools, no sunrooms. Located on a plot of land that's 13,674 square feet. It is retention pond adjacent. Today I'm going to be presenting 4 comparables. They are all single family homes. located in Bridgewater, either Bridgewater Lakes, Trails, or Forest. Comparable 1 is built by KDR. Comparable 2 is built by Fox Ridge. Comparable 3 is built by Fox Ridge, and comparable 4 is built by Huntington. They're all 2-story homes. The year builds vary between 2015 and 2018. The effective age typically on a newer home like that would match the year build. So they all match. Living areas, the range is between, at the low end, 2,695 square feet. And on the high end, for comparable number 4, there's 3,362 square feet. They all have walkout basements. The amount of square footage finished in the basement varies a little bit, so I gave you guys some details there so you can see the differences there. Full baths range between 2 and 3. Half baths range between 1 and 2. Extra showers range between 1 and 2. They all have central air conditioning. They all have 1 fireplace. They all have a multiple attached garage, I should say. None of them have detached garages. None of them have pools. To note, comparable 3 has a sunroom. The land's pretty similar in size. It varies between 11,704 square feet at the low end and 13,209 square feet at the high end. They're all retention pond adjacent. The sales dates range between, what do we have here, I guess February 2019 to July 2020 be the range. The actual sale prices range at the low end, $1,078,000, and at the high end, $1,250,000. The prices per square foot, so these would be all inclusive with land and dwelling, would range between 351 a square foot at the low end to 428 or 429 a square foot at the high end. The time adjusted sale prices, so when we bring all these comparable sales to our reference date, which is at the top of the page there, April 1st, 2021, when they're time adjusted, the range is between 1,167 on the low end and 1,329 on the high end. The time adjusted sale prices per square foot, they range between 379 per square foot on the low end and 450 a square foot on the high end. We have the 2023 assessed value at 1,277,000. My recommendation is to maintain the assessed value as supported by the comparable sales. Note that the subject dwelling is much larger and is also newer than the comparables. The cost to construct a similar quality 2-story dwelling is over $300 a square foot, excluding land. Also note that basement finish for new construction would have a cost of approximately $50 per square foot, and that the subject has more area finished in the basement than all 4 comparables. The last thing I just kind of want to mention is when you look at the definitions of market value, you'll notice that in the textbooks, it'll never say the price at which a buyer pays a builder to build a home in the future. And the reason for that is a really good example is basically the conditions that we saw in the last few years, where you can sign a contract with a builder, and because materials are inflating so fast that by the time the house is constructed, its market value is drastically different than what you signed on paper. The opposite can also happen in a deflationary environment or in a market downturn. So to confuse market value with the price someone paid a builder is a colossal mistake, in my opinion. So I just wanted to point that out, and that's it for me. If anyone has any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Gauthier. Mr. Sidhu, do you have any questions for Mr. Gauthier?
I would just like to make a confirmation of like the square footage. So based on the plans that the city has, the above grade is 3875, not 3876. And the below grade that's finished from the drawings that the city has is from the builder's blueprints are 1193. I'm not sure where the 1495 came from when I spoke with the assessor. because we went through the drawings together. Not yourself, Eric, but when I spoke with the previous city assessor.
Well, what we can do in that instance is we can come and measure. Sometimes there's estimated, like when I actually do new construction in the southeast, and sometimes what happens is we have plans with, 37 feet, 3 inches. So we basically round up or round down. So our numbers are
Okay.
not fairly like spot on. And we never ever assume what the builder has on paper, because what happens is some of them will exclude staircases, for example. Some of them will exclude certain areas, and we measure the houses, like we look at the plans based on the outside. And to
Oh,
be
so you,
treat everybody.
okay. So you
that
don't
way.
actually count the living space, you count the exterior space.
Correct.
So even the mechanical rooms that are unfinished, that are not living space, get included in square footage.
That's correct.
Okay, then, I mean, yeah, then that might be closer to it than with your adding all
Yeah.
that space then.
Yeah,
Okay.
if you drop your house on CAD and you measure from the outside, that's the best way to have a look. And if there's any discrepancies, we can adjust that.
Okay. Okay, no, thank you for those. I do appreciate providing the comparisons as well on Friday. I did go through them. Fortunately enough, I actually spoke with all 3 of those builders and one other builder, Artista, when we were looking to build our house with myself and my wife. So the one thing with regards to the $300 per
Excuse
square
me.
foot, like,
Excuse me,
go ahead.
Mr. Sadhu, do you have questions for Mr.
Oh,
Gauthier?
sorry,
We're
I
at the
apologize.
questioning stage, yeah.
Oh, okay. For the questioning stage, I guess, the questions I had from the $300 a square foot, excluding the land, where is that coming from? Because in my conversations with builders, and I'm in real estate finance, they're still able to build below that. So some custom builders are higher than that for sure, but some are able to come below subject to the upgrades.
So if you're savvy with math, I invite you to take all the sales that I presented, strip out the land, which varies, 200,000 to 250,000 for a plot of land on the lake. Strip out that land and then do the simple math and the simple division, and you'll see kind of where that number is coming from. So when I say that means your typical house, when I'm saying $300 a square foot, that's like garage in, but if you do the math, you'll see. That's where that number comes from. It's called market extraction and appraisal theory. So if you're wondering what the price per square foot to build is and you know your land values, very simple. Strip out the land. And you gotta compare apples and apples and oranges with oranges, right? Obviously, like Broadview home is not going to come in at the same price per square foot as a Fox Ridge, right?
Yeah.
So you compare your apples and apples, and then you take a handful of them, do the simple math, and that's kind of where you get your range.
So I will provide comment on all 4 of those sales are fully landscaped. 3 of those are Parade Home gold winning homes, which have significant
Is this a
amount of
question?
upgrades.
Is just the question for the assessor, or is this your evidence?
This is, I guess this will be my evidence, so no more questions.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Sorry.
That's okay, quite all right. Mr. Stephenson, do you have any questions for Mr. Gauthier? Oh, you're on mute, Mr. Stephenson.
Sorry, no, not at this time.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Whitbread.
Just a couple of points then. Eric, you tell us that the reference date is April 1st, 21. So
Correct.
my understanding is that then any comparables provided with a sold date after April 1st, 21 are not to be included in comparisons. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, that'll become relevant once we hear testimony from Mr. Sadhu. Second point, I'm looking at your prices, sale price per square foot. It's looking like it's about 25% higher in 2 cases than the subject property. And I'm wondering, is it the quality of the home or the quality of the material? Can you comment on the difference in the square foot assessment versus the comparable solds?
Well, what I could comment is typically your best bet is to compare the same builder. Now, if I had 4 Fox Ridge homes, I would have presented them to you today. So, I mean, obviously there's comparable number 2 and comparable number 3 that are built by the same builder. So, to me, I mean, they are 2018 construction and not 2023. So we are talking about 5 years of depreciation, which isn't a huge amount, so I'm not gonna split hairs over that, but. Those would be if you're concerned that quality of Huntington might be slightly better. Or KDR, and sometimes that's a difference of opinion. But Fox Ridge, there's 3 levels of Qualico homes. The base is your Broadview. Second level is Sterling Homes. And your third level is Fox Ridge. So to me, when I look at a KDR home and a Fox Ridge and a Huntington, it's pretty close. But yeah, quality wise, I mean, everybody, when you're building this caliber or this size of home on a lake, like there's some people who definitely go a little more all out. That's why it's important to not hang your hat on one sale, right? And you'll see there's a range, obviously, you noticed that already. So you've got your range and you've got your low end and your high end, and sometimes the truth falls somewhere in the middle, sometimes it falls at the bottom of the range or at the top of the range.
Well, I could characterize it a little bit differently, Eric, in asking the question, looking at the 25% differential, roughly 20 to 25%, could finishes actually account for that much of a differential in the price?
Honestly, with this caliber and this size of home in these types of locations, there's usually a pretty wild swing because they're thinly traded. Like there's only a handful of them that sell in one of our reference period. So it's not like I had a dozen of them to choose from. I think that when I looked for walkout basements on the lake in that area, like I came up with one handful. So I wasn't able to, there wasn't dozens and dozens of them to choose from. It's not a bungalow in Windsor Park here. It's so as an appraiser, you're stuck with what you have, right? Like I would prefer not to have a 2695 square foot comparable, because to me, like that's over 1,000 square feet smaller. And when you're adjusting something like that, I mean, you're talking about $350,000 of building cost, right? So it's not ideal. But if I was to focus on a couple of comps, I would definitely focus on the same builder or the ones that are similar size. And I just did my best to present. And of course, some of them are probably higher quality. I mean, if you drive by one, you might think, holy smokes, this one looks real good from the exterior compared to this one. They're all the minute you get into this type of home, they're all very custom, because these are people who have a dream, and that, some of them will go all out on the kitchen. Some, for them, the kitchen is less important. And some will have basement finishes that'll blow your mind, where it's like wet bar and like, theater rooms and things like that. And others is just plain Jane. So yeah, they're not all identical. And like, to split hairs, I could spend weeks and weeks trying to, analyze every comparable and get every little difference accounted for. And I'm sure there are some that I'm not thinking of here, right? Some of them may have a 4-car garage versus one that has a 2-car garage. So there are some differences. One has a sunroom, so that should be accounted for. But that's why you get a range, and I'm presenting the information. You guys can do what you want with it, right?
Yeah, and I'm satisfied with the big picture here, and I think you've done a good job of providing that. You've also factored in the fact that this home is quite a bit larger than most of the other homes as well. Yet you've come with a lower value. Okay, I'm fine. No further questions.
Thanks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Whitbread. Mr. Gucci, have you gone into this home and inspected it?
I have not, no.
Have any of your assessors done so? Is there anything in the file about your notes or?
We typically drive by to make sure, so our process for new construction is we'll usually drive by and contact the homeowner to make sure the house is, complete, have a conversation with them, ask any questions that are relevant. In a case where we're unsure, I had houses in the southeast, like typically in Sage Creek and stuff. And if I'm not sure about quality, or it's say the odd builder I've never heard of or something like that, then we'll go do a full inspection. But typically on new construction, if we're fairly certain of what we're dealing with, we generally don't do a full interior and exterior. Maybe
okay,
just walk around and drive by.
So that would be the same for the comparables as well. You haven't actually gone in?
No, these are sales that took place on the MLS. So we don't typically,
Okay.
We'll review the sales after they take place. But we don't if a house is for sale right now on the MLS, we're not sending people to examine them.
Okay, so did you review the MLS listings to get an understanding of the quality of finishes and that sort of thing?
Yeah, I did a quick overview. Like I said, I've added enough homes in the past to know typically what your KDR. There are definitely a few that are probably higher quality, maybe some that are the same. Like I said, I didn't have a whole ton of homes to choose from. If I had a dozen, then I could sort of cherry pick and say, okay, well, this one here is may have been a show home, but I really had slim pickings. So what you see is what you get, and I wish like I said, if I had a dozen of them, I could have maybe eliminated one that had a little bit higher quality finishing.
Okay, no, that's
realistically, if one has siltstone countertops and one has you know, granite countertops from Italy, and the other one has cherry hardwood floors versus the other one that has a laminate floor, like, yeah, these are differences, but like in the grand scheme of things, we might be talking about a difference of $100,000. You know, if you're going better quality versus, you know, you pick a little bit better quality stone, you pick a little bit better quality flooring. So,
okay, that's great. Thank you for that. I just have one final question. Now, in this case, we have a house that was built 2 years post the market or the reference year of 2021. Can you explain to the panel then how the assessment department derives a value from a house that was built post reference year? Just explain that to us so you're reminding us.
Yeah, it's kind of a weird concept, hard to wrap your head around, because what happens is that house didn't exist then. Okay, but what I'm presenting you here is 4 houses that are, for lack of better purposes, that are similar. So we basically say, okay, well, if we need to assess this house for 2023, the house didn't exist. Now, that doesn't mean it has no value, right? We can all agree on that. So how do we derive value? We take that house, we teleport it in time, and we say, what would it have been worth on April 1st, 2021? And like the other panel member had mentioned here, not April 2nd, 2021, but literally we have a cutoff, and it's legislated and it's in the Assessment Act. So the Assessment Act basically allows us to do that, to basically take a house today and go back. We can go, I think we just finished our 2022 stuff. So basically right now we can adjust 2022 if for some reason we forgot to add a house or something, but that cutoff maybe happened a few weeks ago. But yeah, so you basically look at market evidence, and you'll notice none of my comps sold after April 1st, 2021. And then what we do is we actually chart and look at, so you'll notice the time adjustment. So for example, the house that sold in February 2019, that's a long ways away from April 1st, 2021. And that's why you'll notice the time adjustment. I suspect on our next cycle, some houses will have a negative time adjustment. So people think it's always up, but it's not necessarily true. So markets go up, markets go down, and we have to account all of those comps and time adjust them to bring them to that very day as if they all sold on that very day. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Perfect.
I understand all that. I just wanted to get a description of that. Right. Okay. Okay, I have no additional questions. So Mr. Sidhu, when you're ready, you may present your evidence, please.
Okay, thank you. So as I said, thank you very much for the comparisons. I did review them over the weekend, and as per my comments previously, 3 of the homes, the KDR home, which is Civic Guiders 368 Willow Creek, the Foxers home 42 Willowbrook, and the other Foxers home 364 Willow Creek, were all Parade of Homes Gold show homes. And so as we kind of discussed the upgrades, how they could have an impact of pricing, being a gold show home on the website from homebuilders.mb.ca, which I can provide to you afterwards, they actually show the base price of the home plus what it is with the upgrades. So 364 Willow Creek Road, base price is $774,900. The selling price was $1,049,000. So that's almost $275,000 difference in price just strictly on the upgrade selected. And then if you do that per square foot, 364 Willow Creek Road is 774,900 divided by the total square feet of 4,222 is 183.5 a square foot. Now, mind you, this is back in the past, so I understand we can add the inflation factor, but it's far less. And the same thing with the 42 Willowbrook, sorry. That one base price was 790,000, and with the upgrades that they use for the Parade of Homes, it was at 945,000. So Eric, going back to the comments, you're 100% correct. When we went through the process of building the home, I met with KDR, Fox Ridge, Artista, and Merrick, and the price per square foot was anywhere between 200 to Merrick was at 550 is what they quoted me. And wood is wood, but the amount of wood, the amount of finishes is the very, difference. So I'm not saying the assessment is crazy off. I was just saying, as for what you saw in my statement of adjustments and closings from my lawyers, what I physically paid, I know it's not the current value, but I was just trying to show that we did not do gold level Parade of Homes winning kind of updates as some of the comparisons have been provided. Also to note, all the comparisons were fully landscaped. 2 of them had sprinkler systems, and they landscaping and sprinkler systems. So landscaping's anywhere, I know 50 to 75,000, give or take. 2 of them were also fully fenced. The Willowbrook one and the Willow Creek 364 Willow Creek were also fully fenced. And the reason why we went with Fox Ridge was because of that, is because of the fact that they're a large home builder with the Broadview, Sterling, and Fox Ridge. So the exterior is a Fox Ridge, but the interior specs weren't anywhere near the gold level standard that they've kind of provided in their Parade of Homes.
Mr. Sadhu, does that conclude your evidence?
Yeah, I can send the Parade of Homes listings because that's public information. I can send the Keystone Matrix MLS listings, which show all of the detailed upgrades in them. And then most of these homes have pictures online that show the fully landscaped yards as well too, which I can provide as well. I don't have any landscaping in my agreement. I'm going to be putting my own grass in because it's very expensive right now.
Okay. No, I don't think we need to see them. We'll take your word for it that they were fully landscaped and that sort of thing. Mr. Gauthier, do you have any questions for Mr. Sidhu?
I have 2 questions. So based on the evidence that you had provided us, like I could see that you were able to cut some corners and stuff, try to mitigate the costs, which I can imagine were probably escalating quickly. How many buyers do you think realistically would go through the house and notice that the stone on the exterior was dry stacked versus wet stacked, and that the inside of the cabinetry is melamine, and that the countertops are siltstone versus Caesar stone or versus granite? Do you think most buyers would notice that some lumber was skimped out behind the drywall? Like, these are a lot of ways that you cut costs, but realistically in the marketplace, how many buyers do you think would be that savvy to pay numbers to that kind of stuff and pay less for the house? Like, do you think is that reasonable that buyers would see the quality difference?
So I would say that there'd be probably 2 buyers in this price range, right? And there's going to be a lot of people who are just going to walk off the street, want a big house to accommodate their family. There's the other buyer, as I gave you the example, where we went and interviewed with Artista, KDR, Merrick, and Fox Ridge. I asked them, what do they provide? What is the value? Justify your $550 square foot price range all the way down to 200, right? Like, what is the real differences here? Some of it is branding, right? As you and I both know, people will pay more for luxury items because they have a XYZ stamp on there. The way I see it is no one sees the stamp of a house. There's no logo on the front of my house that says it's a Fox Ridge, or there'd be no logo if I built a Merrick. So from the second buyer, I think there would be someone who's spending in the 7 figures who really will do their due diligence, and hence why there's even higher end home buyers that go with a Mannington home that's even higher than this, right? They want that hardwood, they want the imported woods, they want the stone. So I couldn't tell you exactly who off the top of my hand here, but I think there's at least two buyers in this pool, some that just want the space and some that really want to get all those upgrades. Like, I will say there's a house on my street that's for sale right now, listed on MLS for 2.4 million, which is astonishing because it's a smaller home, but it's American built and they spent north of 300,000 on the landscaping, and they did a lot of other upgrades on the inside that look amazing. Someone out there will pay something for it because they value those upgrades. Versus, if I could sell mine for 2.4 today, I would have no problem with your assessment and sell it.
Okay, thank you. I have one last question. So on the fourth page of your brief that you submitted, it shows a mortgage from Steinbach Credit Union on title at 1.5 million.
Yeah.
Did at any point in time they appraise the property and give you their estimate of market value? And
go ahead.
Yeah, so just like, did they give you typically, I mean, I worked in the private sector, and typically they send the appraiser to do the progress advances. They do an appraiser before they even agree to finance you. What did those numbers look like?
So they did have an appraisal done during the draw construction. The appraisal came in at 1,225 was the appraised value, and that was based on 250 a square foot plus 50 foot for the basement.
Thank you. That's all my questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gauthier. Mr. Whitbread, do you have any questions for Mr. Sadhu?
Just a couple to clear up my mind on some things.
Yeah.
So in your evidence, Mr. Sadhu, you had talked about a sale 3 days prior to your letter. What date was your letter? I can't find a date on this letter you submitted. The applicant evidence letter. When did you submit this?
When did I submit the information to?
The letter that we're looking at in your evidence.
I submitted it on it was just before the deadline on last Thursday.
Okay, so 3 days prior to that, this house sold that you're referencing at 998?
Yeah, that was just an example of a larger home that was recently transacted in like nearby in the marketplace in Prairie Point. That was
But
a very
you
base
realize
build.
The reference date is April 1, 21. And so we can't consider evidence post April 1, 21.
Yep.
You
Yeah,
understand?
I was just
Okay,
providing
thank you.
current market information. Yep.
Thank you very much. The second point, in your evidence, you talked about the house being at 4222 feet. My guess is that includes above grade and below grade.
Oh no, that was 364 Willow Creek Road when I added up the city's information, the
Thank you.
3322 square feet plus the 900 or the basement.
And so your home, you're basing it on the square footage of 3875 then.
Yes, yeah, above grade is 3875. That's correct.
Okay, great. The last question I have is what are you putting as a value that you would like us to look at here? I don't see that anywhere in your evidence.
Oh, I didn't know I was supposed to put a value. Sorry, I apologize. I've never gone through this process
No,
before.
and just to clarify, you didn't have to.
Yeah.
We're
Oh,
just
okay.
curious as to you're appealing your assessment. So what do you think it's worth?
Yeah,
For
I mean,
assessment then?
In my opinion, obviously, I would think it's worth closer to what I paid for it because that's market, but I know the assessment doesn't go based on market. But I just have a hard time understanding. I paid, X, which is if you back out my cost of title insurance, land transfer, whatever, like 1.16 million for the house today. But in the past, someone's telling me it's worth more. So if logically as a human, I just don't get it, right? In the sense of, hey, I paid this March, and you're telling me 2 years ago it's worth $110,000 more.
understood.
So somewhere in that range, I'm comfortable with. It's just, it's just logically to me, it shouldn't be that far off.
That number you included, did that include the $240,000 for the land?
Yeah, it's in the statement. So the attached documentation that provided had the lot cost, it broke everything out from the statement adjustments.
But you just used a dollar value of 1.16 it cost you to build?
Yeah,
That's
so from the letter of the statement adjustments, it breaks out the total funds for the lot purchase, stage advances for construction, how much was paid for GST, how much was paid for title insurance, land transfer tax that I paid on the land, and then how much I paid to my lawyers and the balance remaining that I got back from my lawyers from proceeds that I provided them.
okay.
So that, yeah.
I'm going to try and pin you down, Mr. Sidhu, then just a little bit here. What is the range you're looking at then for your value that you would like us to consider?
I would think a fair range would be somewhere between. So if I paid 116 for the home, and if my appraised value is coming in from the lender's perspective about 1,225, somewhere in between there, I would think would be fair.
And yes, I do have one more question. Just building a little bit more on this $150,000 mortgage from Steinbeck Credit Union.
1.5.
What did I say?
150,000.
Well, that would be quite a house, wouldn't it?
It would be fantastic.
I'm sorry, 1.5 million then. So
Yeah.
the 1.5 million, if you don't mind my asking, have you used that 1.5 million to finish the house with the landscaping and all the rest of it?
No. So what SU did was they took a mortgage on the property of 1.5 million.
Yeah.
So what they typically do for construction mortgage or any other mortgages is they take a higher value that if in the future, 3 years, 5 years, 7 years from now, I want to refinance the home or pull equity out down the line, I can do that at that time.
And do you mind if I ask you what the mortgage has ended up being?
985,000.
Okay, with a supposed down payment of some amount.
Yeah, the difference, like the roughly, what is it, almost 200,000 was my cash equity there.
Thank you.
That's
very,
I could just, yep.
It's very, very helpful information. Thank you very much. I have
Thank you, Mr. Whitbread. Mr. Stephenson, do you have any questions for Mr. Sidhu?
Mr. Whitbread kind of danced around what I was going to ask. Just you were quoting sales per square foot figures throughout the presentation. I think your sales per square foot that you were quoting was without the land value. Was my impression. It was just the cost of the building.
Yeah, I was comparing it to the $300 reference that was in the comparisons.
Yeah. So then you gave your two values, and then I'll basically just extrapolate that on a cost per square foot when evaluating sort of where the appraiser came in and what you're asking for. It was just what I'll probably consider based on what you've already said. So I don't really have any other questions. I don't think that was according to my notes anyways.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Stephenson. I have no additional questions for Mr. Sidhu. Thank you very much for your presentation. Mr. Gauthier, do you have any final remarks you'd like to make?
No, I don't. Thank you, everyone. For
okay. Thank you very much. And Mr. Sidhu, do you have any final remarks?
No, thank you very much for your time. I appreciate you guys looking into this, and thanks for the comparisons. That's great to have to understand how the city assesses things. And I understand what you paid today, as Eric had mentioned earlier, is not your assessed value. It's just, it's hard to understand that your assessed value is greater than what you paid for it today.
Thank you, Mr. Sidhu. Okay, so we have heard all the items scheduled, and this hearing is now adjourned. So thank you, Mr. Sidhu, and thank you, Mr. Gauthier, for your presentations today.
Thank you. Quick question.
All right. Yes, of course.
Do I stay on, or we're